9:36, we continue on AM 1420, The Answer.
We have to do the oversight and the investigations that need to be done. This idea that bureaucrats who never put their name on a ballot but think they run the country, who have assaulted our constituents' First Amendment liberties, they need to be held accountable. That has to happen. We need to do it.
Congressman Jim Jordan passionately supporting the oversight and the accountability of everything the Democrats have done and allowed to have happen over the last 2 years, but not just the last 2 years, everything they did during the Trump administration as well. It's why he wants to be the chair of the Judiciary Committee and not the Speaker of the House. Those remarks came as he nominated Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House. We now go today at noon to what is expected to be round 7 of the voting that just is not showing any signs of cracking at this moment in time. And joining us to discuss is Congressman Jordan himself on AM 1420, The Answer. Congressman, good morning. Thank you for making the time. How are you?
You bet. I'm fine, Bob. Happy New Year to you. Good to be with you.
Good to talk to you as always. I wasn't sure we'd talk this morning, actually, because I know how busy you are behind the scenes. In addition to, of course, what happens on the floor in the chamber. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on. So let's talk
you
about.
Put me on every week for I don't know how many years now, Bob. So I appreciate that, and it's been nice to have a chance each week to visit with all your listeners. And so we always try to make time for your program.
Well, that is very, very kind of you. I do appreciate it. I have to admit, selfishly, I kind of wish you would be Speaker, so I could say I have the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States government on every week on my program. That would be very, very cool. But I'm not selfish. I want what's right for the country, and I know you do too. If you were selfish, yep, you might take the nomination from Matt Gaetz and the support you got from 19 other Republicans who voted for you to be the Speaker and say, all right, let's do this thing. But you're not being selfish. You want to do what's right. Can you explain to me how the conversations have gone, even behind the scenes, with people like Gaetz and others who have said, Jim, we need you to be the guy?
Well, we're having all kinds of conversations, and we're working on it, and we're hopeful that we can get there. And the reason I think we need to get there and get moving is I said this in my remarks the other day on the House floor. I do think this Congress this 118th Congress, this upcoming Congress, is so basic. There were 3 key things we got to work on. We got to pass the legislation that'll fix the problems that have been caused in the last 2 years by the left running our government. And we all know what those are. We need to pass it Senate to the Senate. If they don't take it up and if President Biden won't sign it and won't support it, so be it. We'll have an election in 2024, and they'll have to answer for that. Then we need to also never let something like that, the appropriations process, never let something like that monstrosity that passed 2 weeks ago today, that $1.7 trillion package, never let that happen again. And we need to have a different strategy on our appropriations process. Do our work and stand firm and tell the Senate, if you don't deal with what we send to you as Republicans and doing common sense things on the appropriations, then we're going to just stick with the CR, which means we don't grow government. And frankly, that'd be some of the biggest savings we've ever given the American taxpayer if we do that, if they don't want to do the right thing. And then finally, what you started this segment with is that oversight has to be done, because the first step in stopping the abuses of our liberties is exposing what they've done, so that you can begin to stop it and never have it happen again. And that's what I want to focus on. I've been clear about that for several years. So let's get united, let's elect a Speaker, and let's get to work doing what the American people elect us to do. And I think that is so basic, so simple, so straightforward. But we can't really get started on that mission and that task until we get a Speaker. And so that's what we're working on trying to do. And I felt like we made some progress last night, but we'll see today on the vote.
Congressman Jordan, I want to talk a little bit more, like I said, a little more behind the scenes with what you're able to disclose about what you're hearing from the 19 holdouts, including yesterday with the nomination of Byron Donald. They are just steadfast in their opposition to Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy, from what I understand, has given a lot of concessions to make this more palatable for them if they don't trust him. But what are they saying to you about why they just won't bend? They won't break. They won't make a deal. They won't say, here's what it will take for us to actually elect Kevin McCarthy and put this behind us.
Some of those 19 were in a meeting last night with some folks who were supporting Kevin, and there were others of us in that meeting as well. And so I felt that was productive. I don't typically get into the details of those meetings, but I did feel it was productive. That there were about 10 of us in the meeting. Some of us who were supporting Kevin and some who were on the other side, and we were trying to hash out things that could make the place work better so that we could better represent the American people and do the work we're supposed to do. And that's got to be the focus. This is about the American people. And I respect the 20 people who have voted against Leader McCarthy. They're good folks. They're my friends. And we just got to keep working through this. I thought one of my colleagues made a really good point on the floor yesterday. The founders, they knew democracy wasn't always just easy and neat. It's kind of messy sometimes. And frankly, it's one of the checks on power. Negotiate and work these kind of things out. You have to get 218. You have to get a majority of the House to elect a speaker. That's all part of the checks and balances the founders, in their wisdom, put in our system. And we'll just have to work through it. And I think we'll get through it, and then we'll move on with the work we need to do for the country.
Yeah, I heard that. I think it was Gallagher maybe who said that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he was right. He said democracy is messy, and it was made messy on purpose by the founders. It shouldn't be something where we all just immediately rubber stamp something. There's got to be debate. There's got to be discussion. There's got to be a fight if need be to get to the right conclusion. Go ahead.
Yeah. And no, I was just say, Bob, and frankly, that's Republicans. We're independent. That's American. You know, I always tell folks, Americans by nature, we don't like being told what to do. It's the reason we left Europe, because over in Europe they said you got to practice your faith a certain way, and they said no, we don't, and we're willing to get on the ship and risk it all and come to this place called America where you have freedom, and that is sort of in the DNA of Americans, and most certainly in the DNA of Republicans, and I think we're seeing that on display. That's a good quality, but you just got to work through it and get united, as I said, but sometimes it takes a little time.
Congressman, I want to ask you big picture about the brand, any damage that might be being done to the Republican brand, because while Gallagher is right, the founders intentionally made it messy. You got to get to 218, and that's not easy. They couldn't have envisioned Twitter. They couldn't have envisioned 24/7 television news cycle, all reporting on every word and every crossword between Republicans in the battle to get where you need to be. Yeah. So there's a real concern here, I think, of Republicans being looked at as the party of chaos. Does that concern you in terms of big picture?
No, we'll get through that. I think the bigger concern, and I understand with the 24-hour news and social media, I understand, and the media, the mainstream press is always wanting that they love any type of disagreement amongst Republicans, and of course they never cover disagreements among the left and the crazy things the left are up to. So I get all that, but I think the real concern about damage to the Republican brand is what happened 2 weeks ago. Is the $1.7 trillion bill that a handful of Republicans did with all the Democrats. That's the damage to the brand.
Handfuls, and that's couple of large handfuls, actually. Sadly.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we got to be trying to stop. And that's why I specifically referenced that kind of that bill in my remarks on the other day. So. That's what we got to focus on. We'll get through this. It may take a little while, but we'll get through it, and then it's time to hit the ground running and get to work for the country.
Will there be long-lasting ramifications among the relationships of Republican colleagues here? Because Dan Crenshaw, going on Guy Benson's show on live national radio and saying that those holdouts are terrorists. He said, we can't let the terrorists win. When he was criticized for that, he said, grow up, get thick skin. It's just a figure of speech. It's not, though. You talk terrorists in the United States of America, in a very, very dangerous time in a world where, we've seen terrorism and what it can do to us. I mean, that's pretty bad. And there are some. Yeah. I think he went on to say those people are our enemies. Can that be restored? Can working collegial friendship type relationships be restored after that?
Yeah, they have to be, because this is one speech I have given to my colleagues. I said it again the other day on the floor. We only got we're 222. We've got a 4-seat majority. We had better work together, or because any differences that exist, and I think this is so important. Any differences that existed within the Republican conference pale in comparison to the differences between us and the left, which now control the Democrat Party. So we had better work together to stop where they want to take the country, and we've seen that in 2 years. I mean, think about it. We have a border that's not a border. We have a military that can't meet its recruiting goals. We have terrible energy policy, terrible education policy, record spending, record debt, record inflation, and a government that, as we've talked about, has been weaponized against we the people, the American citizens. So that's what's happened in 2 years. We better figure out that the small differences that exist in the Republican Party are nothing compared to where Biden and the left want to take the country. And so the sooner we can work together and not call each other names, figure out who our speaker is going to be, the sooner that we can then get to focusing on stopping where they want to go. And that is what we have to figure out. That is how we have to unite, because it's really that important. And we can't call people names. We can't do. It's just not healthy from either side within the Republican conference. We just got to understand that, and that's what I've been trying to work on, and we'll continue to do until we get united and get moving.
Congressman Jim Jordan joins us this morning as the House fight for the speakership continues today. They're going to meet again at noon and have another vote. No reason really to think at this moment in time, Congressman, that it's going to change much. Representative Gates, your colleague, strong colleague, is kind of reveling in this. He said McCarthy is, quote, a desperate guy whose vote share is dropping with every subsequent vote. It doesn't sound like he is any closer to saying, hey, Leader McCarthy has made a lot of concessions here for us. We're getting closer to being able to back him. Do you think there's anything Kevin McCarthy can say or any concessions he can give that will flip Mr. Gates or some of the others who are real hardliners among the 19 that are holding out?
Maybe not all of them, but I do think, as I said, we had a good meeting last night. You have to be at least 15 of them, right? You have to be at least 15 of them. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll know today at noon if we're moving in the right direction, and let's hope that we are. But like I said, the meeting we were in last night was, I think, the most productive one we've had in several weeks in trying to come together. So we just got to keep after it and get it done.
Congressman, one of the concessions that has been made and has been demanded, I guess, is a vote on term limits. And some are calling for no more than 3 2-year terms. Now, you've been in Congress for what, about 5 terms, 6 terms, 7 terms?
Yeah, longer than that.
Somewhere in that neighborhood?
16, yeah.
18 years now. 8 terms, 16 years. Okay, thank you. So I've never viewed you or read you, as I've studied your career going on, and certainly since we've been talking, as a guy who's a career politician for the sake of advancement, for the sake of personal achievement and so forth. I don't feel like you're that guy, but I have also very much valued your time in this Congress. I don't want to see you go or guys like you go.
I appreciate
but no, I mean that. But on the flip side, I also kind of agree with term limits, because I think it would stop people who are about personal advancement and career politicians who want to stay for 20, 30 years and who have outlived their usefulness, if I could say that respectfully, and all if I can. But I'm kind of for it. Where are you if there was to be a vote granted on term limits? Yeah, I'm for it. I think 12 makes probably the most sense. That kind of corresponds to you get 2 terms in the Senate and you get 6 terms in the House, and I support that. It'd take a constitutional amendment to do it. I actually supported it when it was on the ballot back in Ohio. What would it be? 30 years ago, I guess, early 90s, that when we got term limits for the state House and state Senate, there was also on the ballot term limits for Congress. But then, of course, the Supreme Court said that you couldn't do that because you can't have one state doing it and another state not. So I support it, and I think you're going to lose some good folks. And I appreciate the nice word you said about me. I don't know if everyone thinks the same, but you lose some good folks. But on balance, I think newer, fresher people coming in is probably a darn good thing. So I support it. Well, they can say what they want about you. I mean, the fact that you're sitting where you are right now, having been nominated for Speaker and saying, no, I don't want to be Speaker, shows you are not for personal advancement. I mean, how many people, as a matter of fact, I talked to somebody yesterday who said they really believe that Kevin McCarthy is looking to check that career box. He has wanted to be Speaker ever since he got into Congress. And he wants to check that career box, that I held that very powerful position, third in line to the presidency, blah, blah, blah. You're being pushed for it, and you don't want it. So I don't believe you're about personal advancement. It's guys like you that we want to keep in Congress because you want to be there to serve, not for personal growth and gain.
I want to hold what I really want to do, Bob, is I want to hold the FBI accountable for what they've done. You think about what has happened to our First Amendment. That's what scares me more than anything that's going on in our government, in our culture, in our country today, is what the government has done to the most fundamental liberties we enjoy, including your right to practice your faith, your right to speak, all those fundamental liberties we have. That's what I want to try to expose as best we can so that we can stop it from ever happening in the greatest country in history, from ever happening in our great country again. That is what I want to get done. I think that is so important for the health of our great nation. like I said, I hope we get united here soon so we can get after that fundamental task.
Well, and again, that's why I respect you, because I feel like that's what you want to do is serve. If you would rather serve as a committee chair and hold people accountable for the betterment of the country rather than be Speaker of the House and say, I have power, then you're doing it the right way. Last question for you. Away from all the drama right now on the Hill and on the House floor, Joe Biden is apparently going to Mexico, and he said this.
Are you going to be visiting the border when you head down to Mexico?
That's my intention. We're working out the details now.
That's my intention. Will you go? He wouldn't go to the border when he was in Arizona. So now when you go to Mexico, will you visit the border as part of it? He said, that's my intention. We're working out the details now. Do you think he actually will?
I hope so. I mean, look, you and I disagree with so much of probably every policy Joe Biden's done this first 2 years here. But this is a fundamental task of the commander-in-chief to protect our country, protect our border, the fentanyl and all the we don't have to get. We know how bad it is, but in the fact that he won't go there and he won't step up to the task at hand and deal with that. I mean, I hope he does, and I hope he freaking changes his policies and goes back to the things that we know work, because it is so frustrating. And the landowners down there, the mayors the Democrat mayors on the border are talking about how bad this is. So I certainly hope so. But more importantly, I hope he begins to change the policies and actually implement and enforce the laws that are on the books to have a border to our country again.
Yeah, I hope those things too. And here's what I fear. He goes down there, and between him and the leadership in Mexico, they're going to whitewash an area of the border. They're going to completely clear it. They're going to make sure that the press pool that follows him looks and says, what's everybody complaining about? There's hardly anything here at all. That's the reason he hasn't gone down, because it's going to be exposed when he goes there. They're going to have to follow. And somebody besides Bill Malugin on Fox is actually going to have to cover the border. Nobody else is doing it. And that's what I'm afraid is they're going to whitewash it, have a clean area, and say, look, this is no problem, we're okay.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. Let's hope that there's some people still in the mainstream press who are going to report the facts and the truth, not just the folks at Fox and some of the conservative outlets. So let's hope so. Super
quick yes or no question, crystal ball this, do we have a new speaker by the end of the day today?
I hope so. I hope so. I do, but we'll find out, Bob. I hope so.
Yes or no question, and I got an I hope so. That does not make me optimistic. No, I appreciate I get it. You don't know, and I totally understand. None of us do at this point in time. It's a very, very complex and messy situation, as Gallagher said. Jim Jordan, thank you for coming on. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and hopefully next week, by the time we talk next week, we will have that speaker in place, and we can talk about holding people accountable.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thanks, Bob.